I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. He played Rum Tum Tugger in the 5th U.S. National Tour. So welcome, Chris Stevens, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I always enjoy talking to anyone who plays Tugger because I think it's one of the more interesting and exciting characters for sure in the show. So let's start, because I know you've actually played Tugger not just on tour, but also in other productions. Let's start with your history of Cats prior to tour. How much did you know about it?
So I truly didn't really know the story. I think I'd seen in middle school, I remember we had two music teachers, and when we were in the one music teacher's class, if she was ever out, for whatever reason, every time the sub was in, we always had to watch Cats. And you could never get through the full thing, obviously, in the 45, 50-minute period that we were there. But I'll never forget it. Mrs. Case, every time she was sick, we watched Cats. And I just remember, I remember seeing Tugger. I didn't think much of it because truly I was just starting to get into theater in middle school. It wasn't like a career goal yet. But I was just like, what is this? What is he? Who is this man that's going around humping everything? Like, it is what it is. And then prior to that, I guess didn't really touch it during high school. And in college, I had a couple friends. I went to DeSales University up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, near Allentown, Pennsylvania. And a couple of my theater people were very much Cats fans, but I just didn't get it. And I remember one time we went to our friend's house and chose to watch it. And I sat there completely sober, not knowing what I was watching.
Okay.
I didn't have much experience prior to the audition.
I love it. So this is 1998 movie, I'm assuming, and you're
at PBS.
So you have watched it as I want to interview your teacher now. I want to talk to Miss Case. I think you said I want to know who chooses to come in as a substitute. Just hey, we're gonna watch Cats for this week.
We always dreaded when she was out, and I hate to say it, she always had a lot of health issues going on. So we watched it often, but never made it through the full production.
Never through. That has to be a wild decision for a middle school substitute teacher.
It was bizarre for sure.
So, okay. And then how old were you when you saw it the time you sat down and watched it?
So I was probably, I'm going to say it was college. I was probably
college. Okay. So college.
Yeah, somewhere, but when I fully watched the full thing through, I was probably somewhere between 20 and 21.
And you watched it sober in college?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why I was sober, but yes, we watched it at a group movie night.
Okay. And so you probably had a better, at least, grasping of it then than middle school, I would assume, right?
I started to see, well, I will tell you, even when I got into it, I truly didn't understand the whole through line. I was I don't understand what I'm watching. So I just started to look at each cat as their own story. And I was like, okay, well, that's an interesting song. That's an interesting cat. And, that's a weird cat, it just became very much focused on the music. And that became enjoyable for me,
So let's dive right into this, because it's my favorite part of discussing the show is the through line that doesn't exist. Basically, it's loose. It's very loose.
Very loose.
What were you told in the 5th tour? I mean, you're going on tour. You're getting the backstory. What through line did they tell you? And then what cat by cat did you kind of pick up on along the way?
So this was back in 2011, 2012 that we would have been rehearsing in October of 2011. And to be honest, Richard Stafford, who was our director choreographer and phenomenal, I got to remember, I was new. I was one of the new people. Half the cast was returning. I was just super overwhelmed because I wasn't even a dancer. You know what I mean? I remember it was a Sunday night. I was here actually in my childhood bedroom where I'm at right now. And I called my high school director and I said, hey, Cats is having an open call tomorrow in New York. I said, they're only looking for 2 roles. I think they were looking for a Monkastrap, Tugger, and a male vocal swing. And I said, should I go? I said, I don't know anything really about the show. I don't know the music well. And she said to me, she goes, Chris Stevens, Sutton Foster was in the ensemble of Thoroughly Modern Millie, and she was the understudy. Overnight, she became Sutton Foster, the Tony Award winner. I was like, okay, I'm going. Race to the train, get up there. I get to the audition. I'll never forget this. It was Richard and our associate, Jonathan. And then I believe Kristen Blodgett was also in the room that day. And so we did a dance. And I remember I kept getting called out because very much you need to have the paw rather than I'm very much jazz hand person, very big, very loud. And they kept, I don't want to say slapping my hand, but they would come around and tap it and be like, Paul. And so that was a little bit of an intro into, oh, they really want us to be a cat. Turns out, like, I think the audition was Monday. I had a call back Tuesday, and I want to say I got the call on Thursday that I got it. And that was sometime in June. It was right after I had graduated. And then October, we're rehearsing. And I remember Richard was telling us so much, but to be honest, a lot of it was in one ear, out the other, because I was so focused and overwhelmed with what was being thrown at me physically. I went to DeSales. We were a BA program, not a BFA. So the dance was like my weakest of the triple threat. So I really wanted to pay attention to what I physically had to be doing. So I can be honest and say, as far as the through line went, he may have said some things, but the base that I got was, we're a tribe. There's this underlying story of redemption for Grisabella. And that's what I continued to hold on to. I didn't really understand, the Jellicle Ball, everyone's coming, everyone's invited. And I guess the biggest part was like, we're all trying to prove why we're worthy of being the cat that gets a new life. But then I just, my thing, when people were coming to see the show, I'd be like, just focus on each cat and listen to their story. Know that this is all based off poems. And then there's Grisabella.
Yeah.
So that's what I was telling my friends and family.
Then there's memory.
Yeah.
So that is interesting to hear. The dance, the song, like, as someone who's not a dancer, not a singer, I'm a zero threat of your triple threat. Like I have none of the abilities. And so all of that is foreign to me. So the part I've grasped onto is the story, but it is interesting to hear you say it's like, yeah, you probably were given a lot more of the backstory, but at that moment in time, you're just like, who cares? I just got to make sure I'm dancing correct.
I was like, I just have a job to do and I want to do it well. And I was just out of school too. So I was so excited to be working on a national tour of a long running musical. And it was just, I remember every day I would go in, and before I could even get into the rehearsal room, I was just sweating because I'm very hard on myself and I'm a perfectionist, but I wanted it to be what they wanted. And I got a lot of notes and I kept practicing. And, they say you have to go home and practice your job too during rehearsal. And I did every night until I was like ready to go to bed. I think I'd allow myself once a week to go out to dinner with a friend or go see a show. Cause we rehearsed in New York and that was my first month living in New York. And I was like, I want to enjoy the city, but I also was so overwhelmed.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you say that, and the like wanting to almost be a perfectionist in a character that really kind of thrives off of almost imperfection. Like it is, Tugger is a lot more free-willed and just like crotch dust here and there. And how are you going to so how did you balance that? Like here's my dance number, but also here's a little bit of the like creativity I probably need to have with this particular character.
Yeah, I would say I struggled a lot with that, and I got plenty of notes all through tour. And then even when I went and did the production after the tour with Richard again, I knew that Tugger had to be cool. And I present confidence. I am a very confident person. I'm 6'3", so like I just kind of walk in, and a lot of people always look my way just because of my height. So while I can pretend to be confident, inside I'm freaking out. And that's like, right. And hearing you just say that, I was like, I almost wish I could go back and get another turn at Tugger, because what I know now and how I feel in my skin now, like that little 22-year-old was panicked and just could have brought a lot more to it. But at the time he was doing everything he knew, and there was constantly the note of just lay into the hips more, relax more. And I was so much about like, oh, you said this pose, so my arms will be here at all times. And I just wish I would have taken the pressure off, because truly Tugger is the one cat that can get away with it.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating to hear. And it is part of it's probably just time. Like it's early in your career, or like the beginning of your career at that point.
Very beginning. Yep.
And trying to play all of that. How did you internalize Tugger's backstory? Because like, I mean, I know if you didn't follow the through line as much, you at least knew Tugger's persona. So how did you play that?
Well, so I remember further into the process, I want to say probably like week 2 or 3, Richard and I sat down. He's just like, I want you to really latch on to, like, Tugger shows up when you least expect him. He comes in, he's the fun, he is the chaos, yet he thinks he is the world. He thinks, no one's in Tugger's world besides Tugger. And if he can get Bombalurina, or he can attract the ladies or flirt and do whatever, that's okay. And, there's even a little bit of like sexual ambiguity with Tugger, because he's just that flirtatious and pulls it all over with all the cats. He's constantly playing pranks, which could be misconceived as flirtation, and yet he's very sexual and direct with Bombalurina. And yet there was also something I remember too about something was brought up, and I never went and researched to find out if it was actually true, but that Tugger and Munkustrap and McCavity were all the sons of Old Deuteronomy, and they were all competing, and like Tugger was very much that middle syndrome child that just needed to impress everybody. Munkustrap was the leader, and McCavity was like the youngest who disowned the family and went off and, tried to rape Demeter and all this stuff. So I didn't ever want to get too serious with Tugger. I wanted to keep him light. I wanted to keep him fun. I was told that my Tugger gyrated more than any other Tugger in the past. So I really embraced the hips. He wears that big fur jacket and the chains, and plus I had the coolest collar with all the spikes and the big T. It kind of was like you put that specialty Tugger outfit on, and it just became me. It was very much the Mick Jagger, Elvis Presley rock star, and that took a minute to embrace, because I pride myself on kind of being the guy next door, very gentlemanly, and so I really had to let loose of all that, and it became fun, and I kind of just started in my everyday life being a little more loose rather than so proper and watching my posture all the time. And,
Yeah, I'm sure it has to be, especially at that point in your life. Like it is,
yeah,
it's early in the career. It's at that point where you can kind of bring some of that,
And
newfound.
I really started to, kind of go with that. Like, he's unpredictable. You never know where he's going to show up. So while the cast knew where I was entering from, it might have been a beat earlier. It might have been a beat after. It might have been a little sudden thing, or, he's playing a little prank, or I hit someone's tail, and, they might have gotten a little thrown off. And not to say I was playing games, but I really wanted to exude that I was never going to give the same performance,
Yeah. And it seems like I've thought, like, if you play a character, like if I get to ever do the show, which I would never, because I'm physically and vocally incapable of doing all of that.
Never
stuff.
say never. I never thought I would do cats, and it was my first job. So,
but I have zero musical talent. I could hopefully write a show one day. That'd be probably my better career. But Tugger seems like it'd be the most fun to play by a mile, just because of that freedom and just the ability to just kind of go have fun and do your own thing and kind of just flirt with everyone and be a little unpredictable.
I loved and felt honored to be able to have so much freedom in the reins of the show that obviously we had to keep a certain confinement on, but being able to be a little more free as far as, and he does dance, but he's not dancing as much as the other cats. And so there's a lot of running around and popping up on the different, junkyard items. And that became a lot of fun and a very great workout.
Yeah. Yes. That was a huge takeaway when I watched the show, was all of the dance numbers. I was like, this looks hard, like incredibly difficult.
There was never an easy show, truthfully. And just when you thought you had it down, something else got more difficult, or we were in Colorado and the elevation's off, or, you're in Florida and the air conditioner, it was never easy. And I swear, after the number, he would do the Rum Tum Tugger, and then Grisabella comes out before Remark the Cat, and Tugger gets to run off. And I swear every day I would get off, and thank God I had this little station at the makeup table. And I would go sit there and just sit with the fans for, I think I was off till Old Deuteronomy at that point. And the entire break, I'm just panting, because it's not, and he also a lot of times goes down to the audience. So again, you're doing the choreography, you're hitting your mark, but then you're running all over, going down in the audience, you're dancing with different people. So you're trying to keep the energy up. Plus, like we try to really hold into is that unpredictability. Is like we just got done doing this tap dance, and now this guy's can come out and hump everything, and then he disappears and comes back in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? It's you try to get playful with it, but that also takes energy. So
Yeah.
I will say I started to, with the energetic moments, I tried to pull back as much as I could without, I still wanted everyone to have a different experience and make everyone excited to be in the audience. But it was definitely like, it became a mind thing of like, where can I pull back tonight? How can I go forward?
Yeah, so especially on tour, it's got to be a little bit of managing. It's like it's the 8 shows a week in travel, and I'm assuming. I think in the fifth, in the fifth US tour, I'm sure you had some single days and some like couple,
a lot
real
of
quick stuff, which is already demanding in itself. Let alone doing 2 hours and 45 minutes of a workout each night with it.
Yeah, I was. That was the biggest shock, I think. Not only like, the rehearsal process was awesome. We were right in New York City. I every time I walk into the same room that we auditioned, because there's still auditions happening in those places we rehearsed. Anytime I walk in the room where Cats rehearsed, I immediately just get chills because I'm like, it was such a special time. It was such a cool thing. I was also 230 pounds when I graduated college. And by the time I ended that tour, which I think we only actually toured for 9.5 months, I was down to 184. And I didn't look healthy, don't get me wrong, but it was just that physical. And I will say it was the only show where we would go out after the show and I could eat whatever I wanted because I knew it was going to come off the next day. Yet I will tell you, I didn't want to work out. Like I'm very much a physical person now. I like to work out 6 times a week, but I would never go to the gym during Cats because it just took too much energy on top of the choreography.
Wow. So it sounds like that's what I need to do. The Cats diet is...
Get on the Cats diet. Well, it sounded awesome. Like literally you could go out at, midnight and eat 3 burgers and it would never show up the next day because your metabolism was just burning. But the hardest thing, I'm sorry, I was going to tell you the hardest thing that took me shocked by you get used to was what you just said about the schedule is some nights we're there for one show and then we're off to another city. Some weeks we're doing 5 one-nighters in a week. So on this tour, and I was new to negotiating, I was new to all this stuff, but you have to remember I'm 6'3". I was sharing a seat with one of our females. And so there's the whole conversation of who's going to sleep on the chairs and who's going to sleep on the floor. And so I started out as a chair sleeper and then quickly became a floor sleeper because I just needed the extra space.
Wow.
But you're sleeping on the bus. It was, the cast never traveled through the night. We'd always stay in a hotel, but you'd be up at 5 or 6 a.m. and get on the bus and travel all day into your show. So like we wouldn't even get to the hotel. We'd go right to the venue, do sound check, do warm up, get in makeup, do the show, and then get to the hotel. There were some really long days, but we were fortunate to have a really incredible cast. And I will tell you, out of any show I've ever done, I am still closest with the people that were on the road in Cats.
That's amazing. Yeah, I the thing I was curious about is I'd love to, and I don't know how easy it'd be to do with the costumes, but I'd love to have someone with like a some type of fitness tracker and see like calorie burn during the show, because it has to be like a triathlon-ish type of thing for that many hours of that much strenuous activity.
Absolutely. There was actually, I remember there was this one show or one day that we had 3, we were non-union, so they're allowed to do this, unfortunately. But they were 3 shows in one day. I remember it was like an 11 o'clock. I think it was a 11 o'clock. I think it was 10:30, and then a 2 o'clock, and then an 8 o'clock. And we had the option to do all 3. Most of the cast chose to call out for one show, and then they would alter and see who needed what. And I did. I took one of those shows because I was like, I'm not going to kill myself here. I think I had to do the morning show and I had to do the evening show. So I had the matinee off. And there was one person that did all 3 that was playing company, and then all of the swings. I mean, you want to talk about effort and energy and just always showing up. Those swings did not let anyone down that day. And, they don't get to go on every night, but I'm sure they were living because they got to be one cat in the morning, one cat in the afternoon, one cat in the night. So they got to try different tracks out. But it was cool to see your company that you grew so close with. And I would love to go back. It was also, now that you said that too, I'm thinking Tugger wears those gloves. You could probably easily keep a Fitbit on underneath that.
Yeah, I hope someone does that one day. I can't even imagine. That's like 7 hours of performing.
Yeah,
that day.
Correct. I sat out with my matinee and said, I'm going to enjoy this. Get me some M&Ms and a Coke.
I don't blame you. I want to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier, which is about some of the character, the brothers and parents and this and that. So I'd love to kind of explore a little bit about what I think I've uncovered on Tugger. And I think you mentioned one is that Old Deuteronomy is your dad, and Monk and McCavity are brothers. And that to me makes a lot of sense. I don't know if that one's been clearly stated, but it definitely seems pretty much universally accepted. That's why Monk and Tugger kind of have a little back and forth of like, hey, here's the class clown and the serious brother. The McCavity one feels a little slightly different because that opens up a lot of very interesting like storylines of Demeter and Baum and Tugger flirting with all. But there's two I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, which is one is that potentially the relationship with Grisabella. Do you think that Grisabella is your mom?
Ooh, I never looked at it that way. No, my instinct says no, but only because I never saw Grisabella and Old Duke together. Not saying that had to be the case, but no, I think there was a time where Grizz and Tugger were probably really tight. I think they got along because she's a glamour cat and he knows he's amazing at everything he does. I don't know if it was maybe it would have been a sibling, maybe it would have been an aunt. I don't know that it would be a mom because I don't know. I just remember that first time she comes out during Remark the Cat, and Richard had even instructed me. He's like, get angry with her, and never gave me a reason, but he said, just find a reason to be angry with her. And I always just felt a little bit of betrayal. So maybe it's a mom thing. I don't know. You just made me really go deep on that.
I think that's the argument for it is that you're supposed to be like, your animosity is like, were you abandoned and left with with Old Deuteronomy as single dad? Like she ditched you at the peak of you becoming.
I kind of like that a lot.
Yeah.
I kind of really like that a lot. I don't know. That could be a really cool way to play it if I ever get the chance to do it again.
I've learned that as I've recorded more of these, that I think I'm just influencing the future performances. As I ask these questions.
I think you need to direct one and come in with Richard and get the next production up.
Whenever the next production comes, I want to be called in as just an expert person to just ask questions. Be like, okay, hey, do you think this is your mom? Do you think that you're together? Because this is the other huge rumor, and there's a lot here, and I've heard some crazy stories about this one, but the relationship with Mistopheles.
Okay, what did you hear about it?
Well, I'll start by saying if you read Kat's fan fiction, which I have unfortunately done for this podcast, it's 95% of the fan fiction is erotic Tugger Mistopheles fan fiction. Which it's also a lot of graphic pictures that I've seen posted and shared.
I actually have seen a couple. Yeah, actually, I was sent a couple of those when I was doing. I will tell you, I have never in my life, fans the way Cats has them.
For sure.
And I will tell you,
they're amazing.
Amazing
fans.
Showing up to performances dressed in full cat. Yeah, they are incredible. But there are some other like disturbing things that are out there and I don't want to say disturbing. It's like you get these almost pornographic drawings of Mistopheles and Tugger. I'm like, what are people doing with their spare time right now? Beautiful art, don't get me wrong. Absolutely beautiful, but it makes you look at your job in a different way. And Mistopheles was a tricky one, because obviously he's a little fabulous in his sparkly outfit, and we love him. But I always found it odd too that, I always question, why is Tugger singing this song? He's popping up, he's presenting something fantastic, but I don't know that I ever truly came to a reason of why am I singing this song? Why is Tugger the one to introduce this cat? Could he have been another brother? Could he have been just the best friend? Could he have been the bisexual gay lover that Tugger wanted to experiment with? Who knows what that could be? Because I do think Tugger is very pansexual and will literally hump anything that's in his way, and that's he's okay with that. I didn't ever fully lock in. I think it was more of a friend thing for me, especially because the guy, Chaz Wolcott, who played our Mistopheles, we had great chemistry on stage. Genuinely loved being with him. And we just had fun during that number. And he was this incredible dancer. So I was more honored to get to introduce him. I don't know if I ever thought of I don't think we ever took it to like the sexual body language with each other, but totally an interesting take.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I think, because of Tugger's fluid gender, essentially, he's just like, seems like he's just horny. Like, let's be honest. Like, it doesn't matter
all the time,
who or what, all the time, all cats, doesn't matter. That then portrays onto other cats, which is why if you like really dig into the cat's rumor mill, or if you like look at, because these two cats are together or they're having this type of interaction, maybe I can make I can surmise some type of relationship there. That's it. Tugger lends himself really well to a lot of those because of just the way, because of his, the way he interacts. But the Mistopheles one is everywhere. It is like every single place. There's a lot to it, to the point where it's so much out there. It seems like almost a universal truth, or it's just the one that everyone latched onto and decided to write.
They really wanted to go for it. Yeah. It's, and now that I'm thinking about it too, it's one of those, I think back to where I was in my life when I was doing cats, and I was actually in my own journey of coming out. And so I think I may have even just been a little shy in playing up the sexual side with the male cats. But now I see it, when I did it a year later, I started to see a little bit of it. And it's kind of a beautiful thing about Tugger is he kind of lives in this world that we all kind of wish we could live in now, where we all just embrace one another and love who you love and do whatever you want, do what makes you happy. It's my business, not yours, So yeah, I would be, again, if I could go back with the knowledge that we're now discussing, I think I could have a really interesting take on Tugger.
I think that's what, again, makes this show fun in the sense.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, I mean, you definitely mentioned the Cats fans are crazy in a good way. They're passionate. I'm curious to hear about the tour fans, because I know that there's the Broadway revival had the Junkyard and some of these, like this core group of people that came a lot, but on tour, you're not in a city for that long. What was the fandom like on that? Was it mostly people who were like, I'm from Indiana, and I always think about when the tours that come through Indiana, it's generally the people who have tickets to all the shows. And they're going to come, and they might walk out if they think it's the worst thing in the world, but they're not going to like get rid of them, or they might really embrace it and enjoy it. But it's mostly filled with that core audience. Was that the way with Cats on most of your stops, or was it a lot of the super fans that were not going show to show, but were like, oh, I'm close to one, I'm definitely going to go find my way to see it?
I think we had a good balance of, season subscribers, people that were just seeing a show or, going on a date. But there were we had a lot of the super fans did show up. And I feel like the one of them showed up to at least 6 or 7 different venues, like came and saw us several times on the road. So I think, generally it was just your average, audience, people that live in the city. They were coming out to see the show, but now and then you get a nice little surprise. And I will say, super fans seem to either come like opening night, or they wait for the weekend when they can like dress up and go crazy and have a good time. And I only use the word crazy with super fans because I'll never forget I think it was our last performance. We were in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So all the super fans had flown out. That was probably the most packed that we had. And I remember there was somebody dressed as Victoria, the purely white cat, in like the 5th or 6th row. And I always remember, Tugger comes out and he's on top of at least in the original version was he comes out and he's on top of the oven. And you get that little bum, 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 bum. And I'd always cock my head on the final bum. And the white cat in the audience cocked her head with me. And from that moment on, I was like, she is in my head. Like literally anytime I looked in the audience, her eyes were like on me and trying to imitate whatever my hands are. And I was like, can you just let me do my job? You're now distracting me. But I appreciate it because I realized they really just wanted to be on stage dancing with us. But it did become distracting a couple times, especially if you're showing up in an all-white cat. But yeah, I mean, the audience embraced us. Some people would leave at intermission. Some people would leave in the middle of the show. some people just want to stay and hear Memory, and they're disappointed at the end of Act One because they think it's the big version and it's not. Like that was always a letdown. Everyone's like, "Oh, I thought we were getting Memory earlier." It's the same show that you've seen or heard before, so no, it comes later. But yeah, they were.
I love that you say that because I did not. I went in with no knowledge, expectations, or anything, and I knew Memory was the one song I was going to recognize, and I was shocked from almost every show I've seen. It's like I thought that's the end, and so I was like, why are they singing this early? And then it's Little Memory, and it's now I understand that. I would love to. I want to call this out just in case this person listens. But if you were that white cat in Bowling Green, Kentucky, please reach out to me. And
please reach out to me.
And to Chris, we would love to.
I just want to know who. And the thing was, I don't think they came to the stage door either. And I was frustrated. But now at this point, I'm like, you know what? They just wanted to be a part of it. And that's the other thing you have to remember is like, the tribe is a much greater thing than just the 30 people on stage. Like Cats has touched many people's lives for so many different reasons. And I hope if they're listening that you're not offended that I just called you out. It was just I should have been more in my own show rather than looking out into the audience, but I was truly trying to take it all in because it was our last show. So thank you for being there and being a part of that journey. I didn't mean to sound like I was angry about it.
No, I think they should be honored. Like that's like an incredibly memorable piece of the show. Like they were there, they dressed up, they put the effort in, the time in, they came, Absolutely. They might have come from another city. And it was recognized. So I think that's fun. What has it been? It's been multiple years later.
9 years.
9 years later.
9 years, 9 lives. Also, I want to say this too while we're talking about the superfans. I will tell you, some of these people would show up in these costumes that looked like they were made in our costume shop. Like they were that good.
Well, there are some Etsy stores that are really, really high end of like very similar quality and stuff out there. And I think, you can definitely, if you want to, you can get a costume that's very similar. Yeah. You can get the tails customized, and then there's makeup tutorials on for all the how to like go about making that. Make
the makeup should literally be its own episode. No, a conversation about makeup should be its own episode. But yes, there are. I've seen these tutorials. I won't give their full names because I don't want to disclose anything. But I remember there was a Mia and there was a Christine, and they showed up in a different cat every time they came and looked flawless. So if you guys are listening, keep it up, ladies.
That's awesome. I love the commitment to it. I mean, we did a live recording at BroadwayCon a couple years ago, pre-pandemic, and someone showed up as a Mistopheles, and it was awesome. So fun because it was like the costume was so well done, and it was like really cool to see, that kind of fandom. Like I appreciate that. It's, to me, as a sports fan, I relate it to like people wear jerseys to games all the time. It's that like, it's the same thing in my mind.
It is. It absolutely is. But for some reason, when you're going to the theater, people think, oh, why are they dressed like a cat? But no, it absolutely is. It's wearing your favorite team's jerseys. They're obviously, this show has impacted them away and they want to show their support. So rock on.
I used to think that. And then now that I've lived in New York for 5+ years, I don't think about what I wear to the theater. It's not like, it's not the suit and tie crowd anymore. And I come from work and got tickets usually sometimes offered that day. And it's like, well, I'm coming in with whatever I have. And my profession is not the most like need to be buttoned up suit and tie place. And so I'm in t-shirts and hoodies a lot. And I've just, it's there. So it's, I'm glad to hear that theater's gone that way.
My belief is, at least, and there's no judgment to you if you've ever done it without, come in at least jeans, at least wear jeans. It's the people that come in like literally sweats from head to toe. And I don't want to say I'm offended. This is just me on my high horse because I'm always like, theater's a night out. However, I also know what it's like to be out and someone's like, hey, I got tickets. Do you want to go? Yeah, I totally have been there in shorts and t-shirt before. And even then I'm just like, oh, hi. But I'm like, if you're coming and you're going to theater, at least put on your nice pair of jeans. I don't care what you wear on top. Just wear your nice pair of jeans.
That is, I definitely, I think there is still like, I personally kind of follow that same lines of like, I don't necessarily need a button down every time, but I'm going to be in something at least somewhat respectful. But then I like sit down and, I live near the theater.
Oh, you want to be comfortable.
Like, I've seen some tourists, some out of towners who came with whatever they packed and maybe didn't decide to show, go to see a show until that day. But it's been fun. I want to hear a little bit about did you ever have any interactions, especially as Tugger, with some of the subscription crowds or some of the ones that like probably didn't know what they were walking into? And you're probably one of the early parts of the show that's going to be eye-opening in a good way or bad way for that person. Either deeply offend them.
Yeah. I'm the fourth musical number. So you have a general idea of what's going on, right? We think. And then this guy comes out, this rock star cat. And so, yeah, it's sexual, it's crude, I don't care about anything. And then I get to go into the audience and I get to pick. Now, sometimes I would literally go for the person who's literally just living their best life and I can tell they want to be there. Other times I go for the person who looked miserable and I'm like, well, let's change it up. Let's change this up for them. Let's get them up and like shake out whatever they're in. And if they don't stand up, get the person next to them who I know is going to like just be a good sport because they're not. There was a time, I think I went through a little phase where I started literally just walking across people on the chair arms. And it was just to like get my butt in their face or shake the tail or like just, hump the air in front of them. Sometimes you get the teenage girls that were so inspired that just wanted to, dance. So you pick them because you want to give them that memory to hang on to because that's going to inspire them for years to come. But yeah, I will say that as part of my job, that was what I looked forward to every night, was connecting with that audience. And then, if you've seen the original production, there's that moment with Tugger at the end with Bombay Arena where he kind of gets his, stuff shoved back in his face. But it becomes, they're in on his joke, they're in on his persona. And, it sucked big time when somebody wouldn't participate. I remember once when I did it in Rhode Island, Theater by the Sea, it was a subscriber, and I went to pick her up, and I didn't realize she was wearing a boot, and she fell over, and thank God she laughed about it, but it was like I was mortified. I had to pick her back up. I was late getting back up the stage, and it became the joke that summer. But you just never know what you're going to get. But I try to go with somebody who I know that's either going to be a good sport or like if they need to pick me up, then let's get them up and get some new energy is restored.
That's fun. Did you ever have any like besides the boot, like anybody that was really adamant, like no, I'm not interested?
Yeah, more so in Rhode Island when I did it at Theater by the Sea. Older crowd, didn't want to stand up, didn't want to. It was hot. It wasn't an air conditioned theater. On tour, no, I don't remember anyone like specifically saying no. And I think because it was so a large audience, I could always find somebody else real fast. Because I'd also know that if I had had any bad experience, that also would have resonated in my head for the rest of the show. And I truly don't remember anyone ever saying no. So maybe they were all just enticed. I'm going to take it as a compliment. No one said no to me on tour.
that's all. That's great. I think that's like, again, what's so fun about your characters. You get that freedom and get that experience. Yeah. And as someone who doesn't, I would have played along because I'm not, it would have been, unique. I also would have been, as you walk towards me, but like, please don't pick me type of person.
And you know what? I think I'm also good. Like if I can see someone's truly getting uncomfortable as I'm starting to walk to them and they do one of these or they look like, I'm not going to do that because I do know not everyone likes being in the public eye. And I understand that is some people's legitimate fear. If it was somebody who's like, no, I don't want to, I'm like, get up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would then pull them up. So, and I think I believe they turned my mic off at that point. So I could have that moment to be like, come on, please.
Yeah.
My job.
That's again so fun. Let's do a little bit of rapid fire and then get to my $1 million question. So the first one I always love to hear is, ignoring vocal range, gender, whatever, if you could just be any other cat, if you could just play one track one time, who would you want to perform as?
I love Demeter. There's something really special about, there's something really, her energy, the mystery and curiosity of what she is. She's so frantic, yet she's got this sultry song and this. I also just loved our Madison Mitchell, who was our Demeter on tour. The way she played it, I don't know. There was just always something I was really intrigued in knowing more about that cat. And there's something Demeter and Bomb. I would just think they're the two that are the opposite of what Tugger was. So I want to do it.
Yeah, that's fun. I have an episode with Madison, and Demeter's that is a backstory. Like that is a very, very dark, wild story for that character. And so I've always found, I love that song. It's probably my favorite as I listen to now Macavity. But wow, if you do the exercise I do, which is trying to dig real deep into like the through line and the psyche of all these cats, like that's a dark one to go down.
And what's sad is with the way Madison played and the way I played, we never really spent time together. And anytime I'd go near her, Demeter would run away from Tugger. Rightfully so, and if I don't want to give any of that story away, but I'm also thinking I understand completely where you're at and what you're suggesting. It is dark. And so she would not want to be around Tugger. So I get it.
Yeah. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats?
Oh, favorite cat. I mean, I have a soft spot. My roommate on tour was our Tumble Brutus, and he was the itsy bitsy little like tiny tumbler. I love Tumble. I love Demeter and Bomb. I went back and forth with Grizz. I love Grizz for what she stands for and what she represents. Excuse me. I think my favorite, though, if I had to pick one, I think I'd actually go Skimble Shanks.
Skimble Shanks.
Every time that music started, I love the makeup plot. I love the costume. I love the Skimble Shanks vest. Yeah, there was something really just, and maybe I also knew that I was going to be going home soon after that number. So it was like, I really took a lot of joy from Skimble Shanks' character. My least favorite, and I hate to say this because and it's not anything personal, obviously, I really didn't love Mungo and Rump. I think it's the song. It just makes me feel uneasy. Also, they're bandits, so they're constantly stealing things. But then I look at somebody like Alonzo, and I'm like, why are you here? You can't sit with us. Like, who are you?
Yeah. I love the choices. The Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple teaser is all that was stuck in my head the first time I saw the show. That's all I remember. It was like
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, it was catchy. It's catchy.
Maybe that's why I don't like them, because I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah. Well, this is a good lead-in. Well, favorite song from the show?
Favorite song. Oh, I want to Macavity.
Macavity. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is I've been asking this question, I was trying to think back from this for you too, but I've been asking people which cat they think is going to be thriving in the era of when you performed. So that would be the mid 2000s, right?
2000, yeah.
And then which cat would be thriving now? So personality wise, which cat do you think they would be in their element in the years you were on tour? And then which cat would be in their element in 2021?
I think Tugger was definitely in his element, truly. And I'm not saying that just because I did it, but it was so where I was in my life, what was happening in the world. I think Tugger was thriving in 2011, 2012. Now I feel like, I think Old Deuteronomy is probably just thriving right now. He's sitting back and being like, what have you all done? What have you all done to this world that I've created for you? And he's just sitting back, shaking his head, at least in the last year, I would say. I'll be interested to see like how the mood shifts when things are fully back open and we're back to our regular scheduled programming. I could see like an old dude or maybe even like a Jelly Lorem. The two adult figures come to my mind right now, just shaking their heads and being in kind of appalled and disbelief at what happened in the last year.
Everyone answers it so differently, and it's always such a fun way to think about it. I think those are great answers. The 2010-11 one was really hard to think back of like what was happening then, and I think Tugger was kind of where my head went. I also felt very a lot of pop, which is why for some reason that's what I remember from that era more than anything. Yeah, and so that's why it felt maybe the original Grisabella, not what we get come back would be my thought there. But 2000 was a hard one to think about. The 10 years ago, who would have done that? Well,
and I think I just went like where I am. I had just graduated. It was my first gig. Nothing was stopping me. So I was, as Tugger, I felt like I was thriving, but I also felt like that cat helped me live a little bit in that period and just embrace. And to be honest, like I found the best part of myself on that tour. So he gave me a bigger gift and an unapologetic gift. So that's why I chose Tugger.
Love it. So my $1 million question. I've argued at length that I don't think Grizabella was the right Jellicle choice. So I always love to hear, do you, if you get free reign and you're picking, if you're old Deuteronomy, are you picking Grizabella? If not, who are you picking and why?
I love that Grizabella was picked. I understand why she was picked. I loved in our rehearsal process that we all had to find a reason. And we never shared it, but we had to find a reason to pick Grizabella. And so that became very personal as well. However, the moment where I fell in love with cats, and what's ironic is our Grizabella was originally our Jelly Laura the year that I was going on tour. And I remember being in rehearsal the one year our actress playing Grizz had a little bit of an issue with height. So we had to reconfigure some stuff. So our Jelly Lorem ended up moving over into our Grizz spot. However, Jelly that I was watching in rehearsal, and it was the one moment that I had actually chosen to be present. And I remember we were singing Gus right before Growl Tiger, but she was doing the whole Gus as a cat. And I just started watching Melissa sing with Chris Sidoli, who was our Gus, and I fell in love with the show. I don't know what it was that made me pick it. I don't know what it was, her gentleness, the way she's taking care of him, the way Chris played and he shook, but I really feel for Gus. And I will tell you, if I stop and listen to that soundtrack, Gus is the only song that makes me cry. And I think this is where I go with it, though. If Grizz didn't get picked, I think Gus would have been picked. But now what's happening to Gus? Because I don't think he's making it another year to the ball.
That's the $1 million Gus question, is does he have another life to live? And the Grizabella argument is that he doesn't, or he doesn't care to anymore, and he's ready to be done. He doesn't need to be reborn. I think Gus is the most common argument against Grizabella, which makes sense. It's like it's a fulfilling
and there's just something. I've had a very close relationship with my grandparents my whole life. And so I think there's something very grandparental about Gus, and everyone just watches him. And it's the one moment in the show where we all just stop and listen besides memory. Like it's the only time up until that point that we all stop and listen to what's happening and what's being told. So whether it's just the elderly, whether it's, the relationship that maybe he is the grandfather of all these cats and kittens, and I genuinely just feel bad for him. At the end of that song, even after Growl Tiger and it comes back to Gus the Theater Cat, it breaks and shatters my heart. And he just wanders off, and you're like, oh, are we going to see him again?
Yeah, next year, who knows? It's exactly right. It's the first time I saw it, and it felt like my grandfather telling me war stories. It's like that type of post dinner. He's got his drink and going to tell you those things. And, I was close to my grandparents and they were alive, and it's the same time it felt that way. And so I think that is always why there's a lot of gravitation to that, if you've had those experiences, especially.
Yeah.
But you're picking Isabella. I want to know your reason why.
My reason was, I think I remember it being pretty basic in the sense, but just that Tugger had to get over himself. Tugger wanted to be the cat because he thinks he deserves everything. But whether she's his mother, whether it's an aunt, whether it's a friend, he had this bond with her and he wants to feel it again, but it's more envy. It's more envy that she got out. She got to go do what she wanted. It didn't work out for her, but Tugger feels like he's still stuck in this world and trying to be the impressive cat where he hasn't really left his norm. She got thrown back. She's tattered. So it became this reason of just like, oh, she deserves the second chance. Like, let us find this relationship that we had before. Definitely not lovers. It was never a loving, maybe it was, who knows? Maybe it was Tugger's first real love. And she said, I'm out to go become a glamour cat, could play this anyway. But my reason was just like, oh, she deserves, like, she's proven, she's begging, like she's as desperate as they come right now. Because if you think about it, aside from Gus, who's literally just, I could really use this, like I'm going to die. No one else is really begging for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's McCavity kind of in his own roundabout way.
But I don't even count him. Like he's never no one liked him. You know what I mean? Like I appreciate you saying that. It just, in my mind, he was never part of it. You know what I mean? Like he's banned. He's never going to be back in. Obviously he thinks he's entitled and deserving, but I don't think anyone would ever opt for him. And I definitely don't think Old Deuteronomy would have ever chosen him.
Yeah. It's he's not picking that son for sure.
No.
You were going to ask me something. Yeah.
No, because I brought up the Gus, and then you had asked earlier who my least favorite was, and I actually think I'm changing that because you know who, and I think it might be the song. Bustifer used to annoy the hell out of me. I don't know what it was, just his pompous attitude and righteousness. I wanted to like roll him off the stage. He
is, it's Gus too. You know, it's like they play. It's usually Bus Gus, right?
Right.
It's the one part of the show that I don't understand. Like, it doesn't really fit. The more I've like analyzed, it comes out of nowhere. Yeah, it's just like it's this rich guy out of nowhere who comes in and talks about going to gentlemen's clubs and eating a bunch of stuff. And I never, as I've tried to make my own through line, that's one I don't really get. Now I've forced it in a couple ways with like I can get some love triangles out of some friendships with Grisabella and Joey Loram, and you can get some other interesting pieces of like if you think McCavities and the Mungo and Rump are a crime family, I think he might be the fun, he might be the money, he might be funding it. It's like there's some ways to tie him in.
He's like the Godfather.
Yeah, it does feel like a very interesting choice and for the show, and he never really feels like he's actually. I've never heard anybody make a real case for him. The one case I had heard was someone said that he's a strain on the Jellicle tribes, like economically and socially, and just like in terms of sustainability, and so he needs to go. Yeah. But like, no one's made an actual argument for like, oh, he deserves to be reborn. It's just like he's there.
Well, and he's also there and then gone, and we never see him again. So it's like. But I remember being bothered because I loved, and it was obviously brilliant choices by the actor being made, but I hated Bustifer, yet loved Gus. I enjoyed Growl Tiger, but hated Bustifer. Like, it was just, I think the way that role comes across, and the song it's just that, you know, it doesn't sound like anything else in the show. So I think I just became very against the Bustifer regime.
Well, and it is really funny you say that, because my answer to this question has always been Peter. And I don't think Peter was in your production though, but Peter was the ensemble cat that is also Bus Gus and Peter in the revival. And I was just like, it's a cat that just doesn't seem it's there to be a body. It's a body for the dance number. But
well, that's the same for like Electra and isn't there an et cetera too at some point? Like there's brand, and I mean, I know technically Tugger in his basic form is Bill Bailey. Like that's what I was told at least. But I also didn't really have much time to even channel that as a different character, because I was like, do the opening, run off and get in your specialty. So I was just like, let's just get through the opening.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. My last question is always just, how can we find you on social media and stay in touch?
Yeah, sure. I'd appreciate the support and love. I'm on Instagram at CJ Stevens 421. So it's at CJSTEVENS 421. On Facebook as Chris Stevens. I'm probably deleting my Facebook in the soon future, because it's just Instagram's the way to go. So
awesome. Well, this has been super fun. I've loved hearing and learning some stuff from you and getting to hear about your performances and just relive some Tugger questions and thoughts, and hopefully, to do Tugger again, and you've got some new material.
You really stooped me with that Grisabella mom thing. I'm gonna have to explore that the next time I get the chance to, if there's a chance. So I appreciate your theories. I will definitely use them if I get the opportunity.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.